This is a comment I got the other day. Okay, the whiteboard analogy was awesome. However, you lost me when you mentioned 30 seconds of setup and you're done. Setup where? I've added my info into project instructions and Claude still forgets. What is the workaround that saves me from having to update or remind Claude every time a new Claude walks into the room? This is the most important question I've been asked on this channel, and it's the one most of us are quietly stuck on. By the end of this video, you'll have a visual map of how Claude's memory actually works. Watch this carefully, and most of your memory problems are solved after this. If you remember, in the earlier videos, we said Claude is a brilliant but forgetful intern. Now, imagine that intern, day one, on your team. In his hand, a notebook. Like any real notebook, it has three parts. You actually use the front, where you write things down once, the middle, where your day to day happens, right? Today's chats, today's work, etc. And the back, where you quietly write down what you've figured out over time. That's how you're going to remember it: front, middle, back. Now, let me show you how each one actually works with a real example. Let me just open up Claude. I go to General, I go to a, a tab called Instructions for Claude. This is what I've set it up: who I am, how to talk to me, and then the fact that what I use Claude for, and post that, most importantly, the rules, right? Now, this is not project specific, this is not chat specific. These are things I want Claude to know every time it comes and has a chat with me. Now, if I go to a specific chat, I want Claude to help me with easy animation software for videos, right? So it's given me a few options. Now, this is a chat. It's there, it's like a post-it note, gone, right? Then if I go to co-work, or let's say I open up a project, and in this case, my blog, right? Now, a blog again has a beginning, right? And this is where the instructions that I've fed. This is the instructions, the voice, the topics that I generally want to talk about, the posts that it should be and what it should not do, the reference writers that I like, and again, the rules, right? Now, Claude first reads about me, then it reads about the project, and then it enters the chat whenever I call it inside the chat. Now, I want Claude to succeed. I want myself to succeed. So I have to give it enough context. So I open up a folder where I have the history of all of my blog posts. So now, next time, Claude is not second guessing what my language is, right? I've fed it in instructions, but still it can read through it. There is a file called Claude MD, but you can ignore it if you are not actively using Claude Code. We'll come to that later. And then, based on all the conversations that I have, this is a living memory of the project, right? Keep checking this and you will understand where Claude is at. And you can actively prompt it to change it, right? So, for example, this is user work that it has mentioned. The next part is something like, let's say I want to give writing style. This is something that Claude has written on its own as it's learned more about me, right? How to apply. I don't want rhetorical double beat sentences of AI. It's not X, it's Y. Avoid triple beat patterns. Avoid forced clever one liners, right? Now, this is something I put it in instructions that I don't want blogs to sound very AI-ish. Now, with the feedback that's happened in chats, this has now created a list of living project memory, and you can keep asking it to add things into the project memory. So that is how to maximize the memory which is in projects, right? Now, coming to the most important and interesting bit: capabilities. You will see a tab called Generate Memory from Chat History, View and Manage Memory, right? This is something that Claude does slowly, almost every night, picking up a living memory of what it thinks is important to you, right? You can edit this, but I don't go and fiddle around with this too much because, let it learn rather than forcing anything on it. But I'll show you a real example of how this works. I'm just opening up a chat and then mentioning something like, let's say I prefer rainy days over sunny days, right? And let's see what happens over here. So I've mentioned over here, commit to memory, that I like rainy days over sunny days. Now, if you see, it's working. And if I click on add memory, I see managing memory and it's sent a request and it's added one memory, right? Now, how do you check if it's actually saved? Because people say, I've told it so many times, but it forgets. So now I reopen Claude. I go back to my name, settings, capabilities, and then if you see manage edits, right? It's written Arun prefers rainy days over sunny days. Let's test this. I open up a new chat and I just mention what climate do I like. I don't even mention days, right? And there it is. You like rainy days over sunny days, right? And that's how memory works. You can always go back and check if it's actually saved it in its long time memory. So next I mentioned commit to memory that I like chocolate over vanilla, right? Again, same steps. I go and I check over here. Right now it might not be there, but I need to now refresh Claude again, open it up, post which we go back and look at the settings and see if it's actually saved that memory. Yes, user prefers chocolate over vanilla. Now I'm going to delete Arun prefers rainy days over sunny days just to show you the last bit of magic over here, right? Or in fact, common sense. What climate do I like? Oops, no idea, right? I don't have that information because I just deleted that memory. But if I ask what flavor of ice cream do I like? Chocolate. I didn't mention ice cream in the beginning. I just said chocolate over vanilla, right? What car do I like? Mustang, because this memory is saved. And this is how memory works. And once you know where to find it and what is happening, feel free to work it, test it, and improvise on it. And that's how you understand the entire memory structure. Now, back to that comment. You don't need a workaround. You just need to understand how memory is stored and used. The front of the notebook, instructions for Claude, for things always true about you, not about projects, not about today's chat, just you as a person. The middle, your chats. Nothing carries over to the next chat, or the middle as a project where you'll come back to this work week after week, where you need project instructions, a folder of context, and keep an eye on the project's own living memory. And the back, memory, what Claude quietly figured out about you. Read it, edit it, commit to it, and play with it. And that's how the intern stops feeling new every morning. Thanks for hanging out.